I don't know if I'll be able to see what they say on the screen as I drive. Not that I'll be able to look at that really, but hopefully there'll be some kind of text popping up telling me people are here at some point. So I'll know that I'm not just talking into the void, because, I much prefer, when addressing the void, proper form is to scream into the void, not just talk into it. But I would like to do some live. Hey, if you can hear me, tell me. I don't know what the audio levels are like. I won't be able to reply to questions unless I come to a stopping point, which I will be when I do the real video, which I plan on, which I'll tell you guys about. I will from time to time pull over and look at the questions, but I can't not do that while driving. But a lot of people ask me about cool places in Memphis, music related, food related, and all that. And I thought one of the upcoming live streams could be a locals guide to Memphis, both the current city and the history as it relates mostly to music, but other things as well. And just kind of drive around and show you where things happened and what neighborhoods are like and what Memphis is like for people around the world. Right now, I am not in Memphis. I'm in a suburb called Cordova, and I'm heading back towards Memphis. And I think this stream will last long enough to get me from out here, where I had to take my mother to a doctor's appointment this morning, to where I need to pick up some dog food for our beloved Labrador. So it could be a pretty good 15, 20-minute test stream of live to see how the 5G goes. And you guys can comment on my driving skills. Let me know if the audio or video drops out at any point. But there are people who save up all their lives to go to Memphis, and then they go to Beale Street and they go to Graceland, and that's it. And that's kind of a shame, because that's the least interesting parts of Memphis. Beale Street used to be really awesome. We're talking many, many decades ago, and then even in the '80s, it was still kind of cool. But it's just been sponsored by Bud Light, and it's like a less refined, if that's possible, Bourbon Street. Not that Bourbon Street is the height of civilization these days either. And Graceland is just a corporate money grab. It's a guy's house. He died in 1977, and everything in the house is frozen as it was in 1977. So, none of the people I know who were alive in 1977, if you look at the pictures of themselves in 1977, it wasn't a good look overall. And to have someone's life frozen at that year and commemorated that way, it seems very cruel. Video is blah. Yeah, it's 720p. I know that it'll be grainy. Um, I think that's a limitation of, I don't know if it's a limitation of streaming using the YouTube app, which is what I'm doing, or whether that's a limitation of using the YouTube app while using the iPhone as a source. So the iPhone should be capable of 4K or 1080 or 1024 or 1080, HD or Ultra HD. So if this works and I have a good 5G connection, I might find another streaming thing. There's no reason I can't use OBS on the phone, even though I'm using Ecamm on the full live streams with the studio set up at home. But I thought it might be fun to drive around and take you to where the Stax Museum is, and get out and walk around and show you cool things in that little vicinity. Then drive a few blocks over to Royal Studios, where all the high records were done with Al Green and Ann Peebles and all that awesome stuff. And so show you some great restaurants in the neighborhood, very historic neighborhood that a lot of tourists either would never find or wouldn't know to feel safe in. And it's completely safe if you know the rules, so to speak, which I do. Show you guys where some of the good barbecue is. Take you guys to Sun Studios. I know a bunch of people who work at Sun Studios. Might be able to get us a tour on some other video there. Take you to where the Antenna Club used to be. That was a hot spot for punk and alternative in the 80s and 90s. Much beloved in my heart. Take you to Arden Studios, where everything from Big Star to Led Zeppelin 3 to, well, actually that was at a different location for it, but it was part of that, and a whole lot of the ZZ Top stuff was done there. And show you places like the Four Way and Alcinia's and stuff that if I were traveling to the city, I would want to know from a local and not just go down and pay $12 for a Budweiser, or a lot more than that if you want, because they'll gladly take your money and serve you bad food down on Beale Street. There are a few places on Beale Street where the food is quite good, but you go there on a Tuesday afternoon, not on a Saturday night, if you have any sanity. So, but right now, all that cool historic stuff would be in a different future video. As you can tell by the IKEA sign, I am still way out in the suburbs, and this part of Memphis looks like this part of just about every major city outside of, maybe New York. I'm sure there's an outskirt of Chicago that looks just like this. I know for a fact there are outskirts of St. Louis that look just like this. Huge stretches of Oklahoma and Nebraska, maybe Denver, except we have no mountains. This is just kind of what America turns into. In between the farms, before you get to the cities proper, you get this stuff. And from seeing similar videos from other countries, aside from the billboards, it seems to be much the same. So I'm not know if anyone's even watching this far. I'm just kind of talking to see how it would go. And when I do the real video, I plan to drive for 10 minutes and get to a thing and get out and look at the comments, read the comments, answer comments, point the camera at things you guys want, need to see, might have questions about. I live 4 blocks from where Johnny Cash played his first ever live public performance, so there's a lot of nice things in my neighborhood alone, let alone a little bit farther up. And almost everything that's awesome about Memphis, from the point of view of that video, would be within about 5 miles of each other, 5 to 7 miles of each other. So it could be a very in-depth video in about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. Longer if people have interesting questions. Today's video, like I said, is mostly a test of the tech to see if I can pull it off with just a 5G connection with my cell phone. The 720 is kind of a drag. I'll look and see if that was a limitation of the phone or the YouTube app, like I said. I know Brad's been able to pull off much better stuff than this. I may have to call him for tips. The trouble with being friends with Brad in Australia is that by the time he's ready to talk about things like that, it's the end of my day. So we have long, drawn-out conversations about 11 o'clock at night, my time, 11 o'clock in the morning, his time, etc. It's like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons with the sheepdog and the coyote who clock in every morning and every night. Evening Sam, morning Ralph, whatever it was. So we're almost out of the boring stuff. We're going to get to some interesting things. Maybe I'll take a longer way home just to show you guys a little bit more interesting bit of Memphis that won't get shown in the proper, more historical video. But we're still kind of in the dregs out here. And if you live out here, I'm out here at just past Witten at Sycamore View. If you live out here, I'm not saying that you necessarily live in the dregs, but it's not as cool as Midtown, and you know that, and I know that, and I'm now letting the entire world know that. Midtown's where it's at. I have spoken. So it's about to get a lot less bland. Maybe I'll take you guys. I'll get off at Perkins and go down some older bits of Memphis. Certainly some prettier bits of Memphis, because it's got to get prettier than this. This is the stuff we slog through. Memphis is a huge, huge small town that, due to white flight in the late 60s and early 70s, just expanded and expanded and expanded. And let's not kid ourselves, the white flight is not over. So it keeps expanding out and out and out, and needing fire and police and electrical and sewage services run out and out and out, farther and farther from the city center. And there's a separate county government to the city government, which is just why we'll never, at this rate, never be another Atlanta or Nashville where they don't consolidate. And no one's eyes on the ball of everyone thriving. And so you have big neglected chunks and beautiful, beautiful neighborhoods that have been kind of rediscovered in the last 40 years. That's one of the places I live. The place I live now was kind of crack central in the late 80s, and now it's really, really nice. And I've got a wonderful, diverse neighborhood. Um, Very young couples, people who've been there since the 60s, from all walks of life. And we're all out walking our dogs. It's nice. It's laid back. I'll show you more of that in the real stream, because I do need to, before I get home today, I need to stop and get some dog food for my dog, like I said. And I don't necessarily want to put my home address on the internet. I know that people do the whole Google geo search thing, and I just don't want people to know where the amps is at necessarily. Anyway, we're going to get off this little bit of highway and get some more interesting, pretty stuff for anyone who's watching this far in the stream. And right here at the end here is a Lowe's hardware store that has been taking way too much of my money the past couple months for the bathroom renovation. And there's a homeless guy there, which means that I should not bitch about the money I've had to spend on home renovations. It's about to get really hot. My wife and I do the thing that good atheists do in Memphis in the hot weather. We get coolers in our car and we buy bottled water in bulk and stick it in the fridge and keep it in the coolers as we drive around. I'm never wanting to give people asking for money cash, because you never know if they're going to use it to feed or themselves a drink or whatever. But they may be. A lot of people do fun bad habits and keep them right there. But I give out cold water in the brutal heat. So I'm known to pack sandwiches and bananas and stuff. It's the humanist thing to do. I'm sure someone's gonna give me some shit for that, but whatever. If we're all achieving the same good end, even if my reasons are not the same, I think it's all fine. But homelessness is a big problem. There are a lot of really great churches downtown, primarily from that I know of, mostly Presbyterian, Episcopal, and Catholic, who do great outreach to the homeless with help getting clothes and meals and job placement and stuff. So I'm not slamming religion. Some of the best work on that level in this town is done by churches. But I do it pro bono, so to speak. But anyway, that's enough of that. So now we are at Walnut Grove, which is one of the nicer arteries going east to west through town. But I think I'm going to take you guys over to Poplar, which is a little bit more of the old center of Memphis, east to west. I'm just kind of rambling, as you might have guessed. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. It's so strange trying to see this through other people's eyes, because I've seen all this a million zillion times in my life, and to the point where sometimes it's hard to see it. And a lot of the stuff that I expect to see is gone or disappearing. We're about to be where the old Sears was, and that went away about 15 years ago, and now it's just a generic shopping strip. And we're going to be where the Oak Court Mall was, though it officially died, except for a Dillard's department store a couple weeks back. And Macy's is now an empty shell that Macy's cleared out. What was the Macy's used to be a local department store called Goldsmiths, and that predated the mall by multiple decades. And that was just the she fancy place to go when I was a kid was to Goldsmiths. Then became Macy's, which was still, she, even if not homegrown. And then they built up this really nice mall attached to it, and everything was fantastic until people started killing each other there. So people stopped going, and all that went away, and now even Macy's is gone. Really nice bookstore here on the right. It's called Novel. I can't show it to you, but it's just on the right of us as we're here now. There's a Pinsy's Spices over there. I love that place. But Novel used to be a Barnes and Noble or some other national chain. I don't remember which national chain. And when the national chain sold the store, a bunch of the employees here got together and bought what they could. So about half the original huge store is still there, but it's all owned by the employees. It's still going. It's a rarity to see a locally owned bookstore these days, a brick and mortar bookstore. There's another great one in my neighborhood. There's the building there on the left where Macy's was until about 2 weeks ago, I think. A place called Burke's Books is in our neighborhood, which I also love. So we're getting more into the real Memphis now. It'll start to get even more real once we get over to the University of Memphis area. Maybe would it be macabre for me to point out the house where Al Jackson Jr. was shot in the 70s? Al Jackson Jr., the drummer for Booker T and the MGs. I don't think I want to put that on this video in the middle of nothing else without any context. I think that'd be a bit gross, but it's interesting whether it's a case like this where in Memphis, however many tens of thousands of people drive by that house every month, how few of them know that A, that murder happened there, B, that it was of such an important figure in musical history, and how few of them might even know who Al Jackson Jr. was. Um, but every time I drive by, I'm very much aware it's very resonant. It's like when you go to New York, if you're walking down the street over in the West Village, if people probably the Triangle Fire the Triangle building without knowing what happened there or ever reading the plaque. But if you know what that was, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, it's just staggering to think that that actually happened. It happened right there where you're standing, and probably the sidewalks have been changed since then, but really bad things happen on those sidewalks. Um, New York, Chicago, London, Paris. If you read your history, it's just everywhere. And Memphis doesn't have that level of it, but it has enough that if you're engaged with it, it's a very different experience being here. And that's one of the things I want to make an effort to include in the real tour video. For me, at least, I don't see much distinction between being a musician and being aware of the civil rights movement, because everything we do, country, jazz, blues, rock, is all tied up in that same experience that certain Americans have had. And out of all that pain and struggle came beautiful, beautiful music that we all benefit from. And some of the pain and struggle, um, certainly, certainly, Memphis is a hotbed for that as much as it has been a hotbed for that as much as it has been for the beautiful music. And so you cannot appreciate the one if you don't appreciate the other. And if you feel I'm some lefty comic guy lecturing you on this, that's fine. I don't care. I am some lefty comic guy from that perspective. Um, whatever. This is the University of Memphis. It's a much larger campus than you'll see just from driving by this north end of it, and it's got some other campuses scattered in this region. Sure has changed a lot since I went there. Entire buildings have come and gone. I think this stoplight lasts longer than it ever did before. But I usually parked on the south side when I was going here, because if you park on the south side and you get caught by the train, you're on the other side of the tracks, you have a legitimate excuse for missing a class or two. I'm not saying that's good advice to anyone going to school today, but it was a thing. I think they built a footbridge over the tracks now, so the kids today don't have that excuse. You might have seen a statue, an Egyptian statue on the left there. I should have pointed out that was a statue of Ramses II. That was a real one, I believe. That was given to the city of Memphis by Egypt. Oh, 88, 89. There was the Ramses exhibit came to town, and Memphis has the great big pyramid that was built to attract an NBA team, and we'll do a video on that at some point. Right now, it's the bait shop of the gods. It's a Bass Pro Shop of all things. But the Ramses exhibit was touring the world, and once I realized that that pyramid wasn't going to get an NBA team for a while, it hosted touring museum exhibits. It was the Wonders series, and that statue was brought from Egypt to right in front of the pyramid. Now it's in front of University of Memphis, which is apt. Memphis is an Egyptian name from the ancient Egyptian capital of Memphis on the Nile, and Memphis means good abode. And here, in this case, sometimes it is. And as we cross this street and we get to all the green neighborhoods, the Memphis where I live and the Memphis that I really do appreciate begins. For anyone who's still listening to this, says it's still going live. So as a test of the tech, I guess that's working. I don't know if I'm of any interest or if my ramblings have driven people off. I don't know how much of this I'd watch if I weren't me. Um, but I promise you, when we do the real one focused on the music history, uh, I'll have much more to say of interest to the general public. And maybe I can contact people at Stax and at Sun and see about doing some tours inside of those places with my better gear at some point. Same for Ardent Studios. Maybe they let us in. I've done most of the amps for Ardent Studios, and I've done most of the amps for Sun Studios. Um, Sun Studios is not just a museum, by the way. It is still a functioning recording studio. You can book time there. And if you do, I highly recommend the B15 and 56 and 57 5B3 Deluxe. They have actually one's a 5C or 5D Deluxe, but Fender Deluxes there are fantastic. One of them is no longer a tweed. It was recovered in black a long time ago. But both of them were done up by me, and they're particularly nice. Let's see if I can show this little bit of interest if the gates are open. This is something which is now being called something else. Oh, it's Pink Palace again. Good. Mosh Pink Palace. For a long time, they were quashing the name Pink Palace and just calling it Mosh, which I detested. But this is the old Pink Palace, which was the museum that I spent most of my time in when I was a kid. Now I keep these kids out of the shot. There's a bunch of school kids coming through. But Clarence Saunders, the founder of Piggly Wiggly, the grocery which opened up here in Memphis, his mansion, pink marble, and then he went bankrupt and had to sell it, and that city was given that house. I'm kind of showing you from this angle because there's a whole bunch of school kids here, and I don't want to put school kids in my video. But so on the left there, you can see the Pink Palace itself, and then in the mid '70s they added this great addition to it. So from my square kind of brutalist structure was the museum that you went to, and I certainly spent thousands of hours there. Um, and they still have a planetarium that does light shows and all that. And I know there's going to be a couple kids in the net, but you don't see their faces or anything. Anyway, I just found out that they're abandoning MOSH, which is a terrible name, Museum of Science and History. And they're going back to calling it the Pink Palace. But now the museum is split between the brutalist 70s building and the old Pink Mansion, which used to be just used for administrative purposes. But it's a fantastic museum. And the gate is closed, so I will have to turn around. And if there are school children's faces visible, I tried, people, I tried. Let's see if I can get around here. Here's a rear view of the Pink Palace, the old mansion. If it were really fascinating, really, really riveting, I'd take the uh, phone out of the dash holder for you. I think you could get a pretty good sense. I think they had Memphis's first stuffed polar bear in there. If theirs wasn't the first stuffed polar bear, then I know where the first one was. There used to be a place called Madison Cadillac on Madison Avenue. And when I was to the zoo, so we come the day and get off the interstate at Madison Avenue, because that's where the exit was then. And we drive down Madison and go to the zoo. But right there at the corner, at the intersection of that street, is the exit from the highway. And Madison Avenue was Madison Cadillac. And in the window of Madison Cadillac was a giant polar bear, stuffed, standing up, roaring with his claws out to get you. That's one of my most vivid memories of Memphis when I was a kid. Is I would know we were near the zoo and I got to see the polar bear. And then there was an even bigger one, in much better shape, in the Pink Palace. I discovered that much later, when I was much less impressed by stuffed polar bears, though it is an impressive specimen. Speaking of polar bears, maybe in the history tour, I'll show you guys some of the polar bear statues. There used to be a lot of, there used to be a frozen custard place on East Parkway, just across from the Fairgrounds. And they had all these uh, concrete polar bear statues, and the polar bears were throwing snowballs, and they're all scattered around the city now at different places, all painted different colors. Some of them are still white, but I'm old enough to remember when they were all together, and now it's kind of fun to see one somewhere and say, it's one of the polar bears. I don't know how this turned into a drive around talking about polar bears in June kind of thing, but here we are. All right, we are now coming up on what used to be the Fairgrounds. It has the Children's Museum Memphis on the left, and behind that is the Liberty Bowl, which you can't see because it's all the way on the left here. They used to be where the fairgrounds were, and the Mid-South Coliseum. Is that building still there? It's still there. Um, I don't. I'll do that on the real tour, not today. But Mid-South Coliseum, it was a great mid-sized venue for concerts. A lot of bands that could not sell out a full arena would come here. So I saw a lot of fantastic bands in the 80s and 90s here, and a lot of bands that didn't want to play giant mega stadiums. REM, ZZ Top, Rush, Plant and Page, so many great bands. INXS on the Kick tour there. I guess most famously, that was where the KKK was protesting the Beatles in '66 during the whole bigger than Jesus thing. So that's when Memphis made its mark on music history there, with a great sign of what Memphis must have been like that year. Uh, anyway, we're coming up into my neighborhood. We're gonna go duck into my neighborhood a little bit, then get a little bit of out of it. We're going to end at the place where I need to get some dog food. I think that's a fair uh, test of this technology and the viability of doing this. If I can go just a little bit over an hour. Next time I will actually have a planned route in mind, and not a script, but a sense of what to say and what should be said and what might be interesting. All right, this is my neighborhood. On the left is Cooper Young, named after the intersection of the streets of Cooper and Young. And on the right, once we get underneath this the train tracks up here, the train bridge ahead, is Central Gardens, where all the big mansions are. And I'll take you down that area because it's pretty, and I'll be showing you more of Cooper Young when I do the real video. Anyway, going through Central Gardens, where all the mansions are, will be a nice way to get to where the dog food is. It's good to have a goal. There's a terrible taco truck here on the corner, Tacos and Ganas. Everything is really, really greasy and has a lot of clove in it, which may be authentic to some region, but I find it really unpleasant to eat, which is a shame because the idea of having a good taco truck on that corner with all the outdoor seating is just sublime. And there are about 10 other taquerias and other places that I love in town. That is just not one of them, but that's the one that's closest to my house, which is a shame. Okay, I think we'll go down Barksdale, get a sense of the pretty around here. So now we're going to go into houses that are a mixture of late Victorian and through some arts and crafts bungalows and a few things that were squeezed in. I guess houses burned down and um, someone just built some random something in that spot before they had codes. But this is one of the prettiest streets in Memphis. These are some of the prettiest streets in Memphis, especially, about a month ago at Easter when all the azaleas were in bloom. When the azaleas and dogwoods are all kicking off at the same time, it's hard to imagine living anywhere else. And then in August, late August, I began to wonder why I live here again, because it'll be 105 degrees, 109 degrees, legitimately, before you even factor in the heat index. I mean, it's not Houston or New Orleans, but it's not comfortable. So June right now, it's 86 degrees. We're having a pretty cool June so far. Please let that continue. So this is the pretty bits of town. This is where I hang my hat, except I don't really wear a hat. But if I had a hat, I'd hang it here. There's a nice couch there if you want one. Hasn't rained in a few days, might be okay. Should we go back and find out? And on the right, where all these crappy little condo-looking houses are, that's where the old public library used to be. They tore it down, built a really nice library, but it's not here. It's about 3 miles away. And I like having the old library here, and I like not having those little boxes made of ticky-tacky all look just the same that are there now. Now, if you're watching this and you happen to live in one of those boxes, I apologize. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. It's fine if you live in a little awful house that was built on the cheap. And I don't mean on the cheap as in, oh, you poor people. I mean, they're badly built, poor construction. But that's none of my business, said Kermit, sipping his tea. Here's this empty lot where a police station used to be on the right, but there's a bonsai tree still in front. I like that the police station is gone, but the bonsai tree remains. Seems unlikely, but there it is. It was just like a traffic ticket location. No one needs to get up in arms. I'm not defunding anyone. I'm just glad that no one got debonsaied. And here we are at Hollywood Feed because my poor little lab has got weird allergies and can't eat cheap food. So, but if she's not happy, my wife's not happy. And if my wife's not happy, why even wake up in the morning? All right, this is where this video is going to end. Thank you for watching this far. If anyone actually did watch this far, give me a shout if right now if you're actually watching. Wow, yeah. I will read back everyone's comments after this because I've not had a chance to read any of them as they popped up on screen, because that would be a very stupid thing to do while driving, especially back at the beginning when I was going 75 miles an hour. So here we are. And like I think I said a few times, when we do the real one, I'll probably stop every 10, 15 minutes, whatever, pull over and look at comments and all that and be a little bit more engaged. I just wanted to see if it was doable. So it seems to be doable. Let's make plans. See you guys next time. And thanks for watching.